Luis here with EchoForge, back finally for our first full video. Thank you for joining me, and sorry for the late post. I've been really busy lately, and I told you I'd get them out on every Friday, and I'm going to try to stick to it going forward. It was a little crazy for a little while, but let's get into our first build. So I'm excited to show you all the process, a little bit of what I was doing with my Mandalorian helmet and my Clone Commando helmet. So right here, I'm just applying a very generous amount of filler and primer and filler just to hit those spots. Right here, I realized I should be wearing some goggles. Got a face full of that primer. So I was already in the process of creating these helmets. So my Commando helmet already had a generous layer of primer and filler, and I also had sanded it down previously. So in this clip, I'm just spraying it down with some white gloss spray paint. And right about here is when I realized I'm not wearing a mask and I'm just huffing in all those paint. Don't do what I'm doing. Wear proper protective equipment, PPE. You don't want to get high on your own supply there, even though it might seem tempting. Don't do it. I'm telling you not to do it. But I had been working on these projects previously before I decided to make my channel, and this Clone Commando helmet right here had been sitting on my desk for about 2 years. And so as I was spray painting it, I actually found cobwebs all over the helmet. And as I was spray painting, you can see right here on the very back piece, there was a cobweb that I spray painted over. I didn't even check. I just went straight into painting it. But I have a lot of projects like these that I'm wanting to go through and finish up. So I'm going to take you through the process of how I finished these projects, and soon, once I catch up, I'll take you through the full process of every single helmet and the exact steps I take. But right here, I just put a few layers on this Clone Commando helmet. I put about 3 good layers, let it sit out for a while, let it dry, trying to get that nice gloss sheen to it, like a Clone Commando helmet would look like. I also, off camera, I did do the visor. It came out pretty good. I think it came out better than my Mandalorian helmet, which I'll show you how to do that later. I decided to put in some lights, because you know how it has, the Clone Commando helmets have that nice little glow to it, which I might do eventually later, but these LEDs were not the best or the brightest. It is what it is. As soon as that tint came down, you couldn't see anything. So I ended up just removing the lights, and just decided to finish up the helmet, put in the respirators, get that all done. One of my biggest problems I have is I start a bunch of projects and I never finish them. So this was one of those that I just forced myself to finish. Not caring whether it looked good or not. I just needed to finish it. It definitely has some rough patches, definitely not some of the best work I know I can do. My dog Miss Bianca there making a quick cameo. But I know it's not one of my best helmets, but I'm working to get it better. But again, that's why we're here. We're both here to learn and to try to get better and give each other tips. I want this to be a good community where we can come together, share tips and tricks about 3D printing, cosplay, and all that. And hopefully I can make 10 times better helmets than I am right now. I know for making this video as well, it took me a while trying to get out of my own head about making it the perfect video I can, which I know it's not even going to be close to perfect, but we're gonna get there. My video skills are gonna get better. You won't hear me ramble on as much. We'll get right down to meat potatoes later, but I just kind of wanted to let you guys all know where I'm at in my creating of this channel. So thank you for coming along for this ride. So here I also opted out to not sand and prime and clean up the respirators on this Clone Commando. Um, like I said, I'm just trying to get the helmet out and get it finished just to complete a helmet. So I opted to just print it out and put it as is, but I did use some super glue here. I know there's some better glues out there that people use, but I use that gel Gorilla glue. It works pretty well for me. I know there's like this certain PLA glue that people use where it's like a primer and then you spray it on to activate the glue. If you guys know any really good glue, I would appreciate you could leave it down in the comments. But this one worked fine for me. So here on this Mandalorian helmet, we are doing the sanding. I'm showing you a little bit of that process. I did record that one. So I had the various grits starting, from 800. I think I had 80 grit, and I went over with the 80 grit to get rid of some of those layer lines. I found that it helps in the sanding process if you sand it first before you hit it with primer. So I hit it with 80 grit, and then I kind of went up there in different grits as I went, finishing ultimately on the 1500 grit. I did wet sand because if you're sanding, especially at that higher grit, I found out, all that primer sits into the sandpaper and makes it pretty much not work anymore. So I went in there and I have myself a little bucket of water and I just sand and rinse it out every so often so that way it doesn't clog up the pores of that sandpaper. The object here is just to get it as smooth as possible. I wanted to get it smooth so that way when I hit it with black gloss paint, it would make it a nice, better shine, much more better, or that's the proper way to say it. It gets you that much more better shine. So I'm hitting every crease, crevice, trying to clean up as I'm going along so that way I don't get everything dirty. Sorry about the camera angles again. I'm just learning out. Right now I'm using a GoPro attached to my chest, to my head, and figuring it out as we go. Here I finally decided to get a ring light, and so that way I can show you the very shiny part of me working on the visors. So I just used about a 20% tint for the visors. I know I could have gone to the 5%, the darker tint, but they didn't have it at the store, and I opted to just do a double layer of the 20%. It worked pretty well. It came out pretty good. Like I said, on my Commando helmet, it came out perfect. On this Mandalorian helmet, it wasn't my favorite, which it was funny because I did Commando helmet first, and then I did my Mandalorian helmet. The plastic that I'm using for the visor is just one of those reusable face shields. I found that works very good to be able to see out of. Preset plastic. I know there's probably some rolls of plastic sheeting that I could use, but for me this was like the cheapest alternative that I could find, and just to get the job done. It fits most of my masks. I did notice on this Mandalorian one it came really close to not fitting, so that's something that you want to keep in mind if you have a big head. And also when you apply this, do not slap it down like I just did. That was a horrible idea. I had so many bubbles pop up after that. I was fighting for a good 15 minutes. I even took some off-camera time to fix it. Here I also realized I did not clean off my surface area. You'd think I would learn after a while, but I did this multiple more times. So I had little grits of sand stuck in between the plastic and the window tint. And again, I was squeegeeing all those bubbles for about a good 15 minutes until it had to be perfect, just how I liked it. But make sure it's a nice smooth area. Make sure your area is clean when you do this. Don't make the same mistake I did and spend most of your time squeeging out bubbles and getting out pieces of sand. Right here, I was just trying to cut off the edges, and I made a huge mistake by doing this. Not a huge mistake, but every time I kept on trying to lift up the tint, it kept on pulling up on the edges, and which had to make me go back and re-squeegee it. Something that should have taken about maybe 5 minutes took me about 30 minutes of my perfectionism coming out. So just be very careful with that. Because of how light of a tint it is, I mean, it's still pretty dark, but because of how light of a tint it is, I did go ahead and put tint on both sides of the visor, just to get it that nice darker tint. Again, I decided to just slop down that film, and it created a lot more work for me in the long run. But I decided to do both sides, and came out pretty good. I will admit, it was a pretty decent. You can still see it through it pretty nicely. It's not too bad. Here I decided to start cutting it out. I taped it briefly. So Galactic Armory actually has this cool thing with their prints where they have a 3D file to print out the visors to get the best cut for the visor, so you can slip it in because it has little slots in the visor area. Unfortunately for me, I forgot to scale down the visor stencil with my actual helmet, because I sized it down to try to fit my head a little bit better than what they have. Their sizing is for somebody with a huge ass head, so it didn't go as well as I had planned. I tried to put it in there and make some cuts as I went along, because I love to measure once and cut 3 times. But in this case, it did not go well for me. No matter how much I trimmed or anything like that, it didn't fit. Every time I would pull down the visor, it would start undoing that tint. So I ultimately opted to ditch it and start all over again. So off camera, I went back and redid the whole visor again, but this time I had the bright idea of stenciling out my own jig for it. So I put a piece of paper in the visor to see if I can trace where I need to be and go a little bit bigger to fit in those slots. I borrowed my wife's little bird pencil. It was the quickest thing I could find. That's not mine, I promise. But I did trace this out, and it went as well as you'd think, and it did not work. Ultimately, I just had to freehand it again, and I cut bigger than what my stencil was, and I just kind of scented a little bit to my best abilities, which is not the best of abilities. So once I cut out that stencil, I try to match it up to see, if it would match my helmet. It more or less did, so I said, screw it, we ball, let's go. And I tried my best to tape up the back to have it not move while I was cutting out my nice little face plate here. I guess in all retrospect, I could have probably gone back and reprinted out the visor to match the size, or resize everything to match the size so I could put it out. But I was running short on time, and I said, screw it, we're going to just eyeball this and send it. We did the full send, and while I was trying to put in the new visor in, same thing, I was cutting, trimming as I was going along, and it still was not fitting, even though I tried my best. I guess I had cut it at a weird angle. So eventually I kept on pulling up that tint again. So ultimately I opted to just not super glue, but hot glue the edges of the visor to the very back. It created a little bit of a gap, but it was a smooth enough finish to where you couldn't really tell. Finally, I went back and I did another round of this graphite powder that I have. That's what I created the shine to finish off the helmet, which I didn't show me spray painting the helmet black. Sorry, I forgot to film that, but I did a gloss black finish on the helmet, and I went back and hit it with this graphite powder, and that's what gave it that nice shine to replicate the Mandalorian's helmet. I just did it one more time around the helmet just to get rid of those smudge marks from my oily hands. From here, you can go back and hit it with a gloss finish to lock in that graphite. It shouldn't rub off too much, from what I'm told, but it still rubbed off a little bit in my hands. So I would highly suggest going back, and if you do it, to hit it with some semi-gloss finish. Whew. So this is my final build for it with everything done. As you can tell, the very front, the visor on this one is a lot better than I did on my Mandalorian helmet. As well as the printing size for this, I try to dial it into my head as best as I can. But as you can tell, it's a little tight. And, well, my nose is pressing up against that pretty hard. Ooh. But other than that, I think it was a pretty good job. Might have some graphite there. But there's definitely a lot of work to be done on these. These were pretty much test builds for me, that I just wanted to see if they worked, if they were going to do great or not. Mainly the Mandalorian helmet was a really test one, because I wanted to see if that graphite would work, if it would leave that nice shine, which it did. It was pretty good. But I need to work on my head sizing, as well as my Clone Commando, one of my older ones that I've been neglecting for a while. So it was fun to finally see this complete. Not the best quality. This is when I was first starting out, but I'm happy to keep on going and to see where I can get from here. It's definitely going to be a fun adventure, so keep on watching.